New York City, Rudy Giuliani. He's down in the, where are you? RNC headquarters or John McCain headquarters down in D.C.?
I'm in RNC headquarters in Washington.
All right, it's very good to have you, Mayor. You know, these are challenging financial times. I mean, aside from the Dow going up close to 1,000 yesterday, it's been up and down, and there's a lot of anxiety. As you look at Barack Obama, and you're the guy who, you know, has been credited with saving New York City in a lot of ways. As you look at Barack Obama's past, is there anything, because he doesn't have any executive experience, there's got to be something in his history that would suggest to you that he could get us out of this mess, isn't there?
Well, you know, no. I mean, the reality is he's never run a city, never run a state, never run a business, never run a military unit, never managed a budget. His community organizer experience was in groups very similar to, if not exactly the same as ACORN, the group that we're talking about right now. Mm-hmm. It's a group that I think his campaign gave $800,000 to, or an affiliate of ACORN. Yep. So I think the choice is pretty clearly, in terms of experience, for John McCain. John McCain has had experience at all levels of government, and he's someone who's been through crisis and led this country through crisis before. So I would think that people are going to turn to him as they feel that this country needs very, very steady leadership.
Mayor, I had a chance to sit down with Hillary Clinton yesterday. I don't know if you saw any of this interview, but I asked her about her 3 a.m. ad, which became infamous, and who she, you know, at the time when she cut that ad, she didn't think Barack Obama was capable of handling the country's problems at 3 a.m. But when I asked her yesterday who she felt more comfortable with, she answered Barack Obama over John McCain. Your thoughts?
Well, I wouldn't expect any other answer. I mean, Joe Biden also said that Barack Obama wasn't prepared to be commander-in-chief, that we shouldn't have on-the-job training at a time of crisis. I would think you have to go back and take those statements pretty seriously now. Obviously, he's now the candidate of the party. You don't expect him to say anything different than that. But the reality is Barack Obama is the least prepared candidate for president in the last 100 years. This is not the time, as Joe Biden said, to have on-the-job training when America is facing economic challenges. We're facing challenges overseas. We're not paying as much attention right now to the challenges of terrorism and some of the other overseas challenges, but they're right there, and they may be paramount for the next president. Who knows?
Mr. Mayor, as you know, and as John McCain acknowledged yesterday, he's trailing by 6 points nationally. In almost every battleground state, he's within the margin of error, but is trailing. Do you think one move for him might be naming somebody as Treasury Secretary that Americans can maybe have faith in, so they'll have an idea of what a McCain administration would look like?
I think the most important thing for him is to emphasize his plan for the economy. I mean, he's putting out a very effective plan today, some of which has already been discussed, which will help people stay in their homes, help people withdraw money from their 401ks or IRAs if they have to, help us get through this crunch, just as the president in a few minutes is going to announce a program that I think is going to very much stabilize our whole banking situation. So I think John has to just emphasize his steady leadership, the fact that he's been through crisis before, he's brought the country through, and at a time like this, we should not be going for, as I said, in the words of Joe Biden, for on-the-job training for someone who doesn't have experience.
Yeah. Mr. Mayor, a couple of moments ago, you were talking about ACORN. About an hour ago, we ran some videotape of Barack Obama earlier this year or last year talking in front of a group of community organizers, including ACORN, and he said essentially that if he's elected president of the United States, he's going to have the community organizers help him form his cabinet. Your comment.
Well, ACORN's under investigation in 13 states. At least 4 or 5 states, there people have been either convicted or indicted for voter fraud. I don't think it's beyond question that this is one of the things they systemically are involved in. Whether it's a state like Ohio or Texas or any place else, Democratic secretaries of state have pointed out their voter fraud. This is the group that Barack Obama was a lawyer for. This is the group that he worked with when he was a so-called community organizer. And this is the group that his campaign gave an affiliate of this group $800,000 in this very campaign. So I think this is just another question of, you know, Barack Obama's lack of judgment. And a reason why, at this time, Americans are going to turn to John McCain, who's someone who has experience, been through crisis, handled difficult situations before.
But, Mr. Mayor, is John McCain going to take the gloves off on Wednesday night? Because you have some of these issues that he could bring up. He's bringing them up in his ads. ACORN, Bill Ayers, Reverend Wright, who, for whatever reason, John McCain said he wasn't going to touch. several months ago, and so they haven't faltered back on that, even though some of his campaign staff think that he should be talking about Reverend Wright. Is he going to talk about it Wednesday night?
Gretchen, I remember preparing for debates like this. I did 11 with John, and John is a terrific debater. You only have an hour and a half. And you cut that in half, and that's the amount of time you have. So you can't talk about everything. He's got to do a combination of laying out a vision for this country. He's got to talk about the economy. He will. His plan to help everyone in the economy, unlike Barack Obama's, which is a very, very truncated plan, as well as he's got to talk about national security. We can't forget about that, as we're going through these economic problems. And at the same time, ACORN is a very legitimate issue. I mean, it goes right to the core of the integrity of our election process. It's not in one state. It's not in two states. These people are doing this in 13 states. I was in Ohio a couple of weeks ago, and what they're doing in Ohio is really terrible. The Secretary of State is refusing to allow poll watchers for the early voting. Why the heck would you refuse to have poll watchers if you weren't hiding something that was going on in the polling place? And that's just one place. There are 12 more where ACORN is under investigation.
Bill Kristol said that John McCain made a major mistake bringing up William Ayers, not focusing on the economy. He should fire his entire staff and do interviews. Do you think John McCain's got to make himself more available to the press? Do you think he's got to start doing more interviews?
John is very available to the press. I wouldn't overreact. I think John's plan is a very, very solid one. Ronald Reagan was behind at this stage when he was running in 1980. Hey, George Bush was behind on Election Day by 6 points and won the election, right?
Yeah.
I remember I remember being on your station and all the rest. You all had him behind 6 to 8 points, and he won the election. So I think John's got to go with the fact that John McCain has a history of dealing with crisis, getting us through it. John has been down in the polls much worse than this before. He's not going to overreact, and he's going to illustrate his experience against Barack Obama's lack of experience. I think that's the single most important issue.
Hey, Rudy, I don't want to get personal, but they're at your office. Do you get CEO Magazine? Have you heard of CEO Magazine?
Chief Executive.
I haven't seen CEO Magazine.
Chief Executive Magazine. Anyway, they've got a brand new...
I don't think so.
They've got a new poll out. They polled 751 CEOs, and they found that of the CEOs, by a margin of 4 to 1, they prefer John McCain. And in fact, some CEOs said that if Barack Obama were elected president, he would have a negative impact on business and the economy. And one said that some of his programs would bankrupt the country within 3 years if implemented. What does that say?
Well, I think what they're reflecting is Barack Obama's statements that suggest he's going to raise tariffs and raise taxes. When he says he's not going to continue the Bush tax cuts, let me translate that into plain English. He's going to raise taxes by more than any president has ever raised taxes in the past. That is precisely the mistake that was made in 1929 and 1930. That took a recession, a difficult one, and made it into a Great Depression. The idea that he put so much emphasis on all these new government programs, all the money he's going to spend, all the taxes he's going to raise, and how he's going to crack down on trade, I think frightens chief executives. Plus, they're people who like to see experience. And they realize that Barack Obama is the least experienced candidate for president in 100 years. And they probably end up agreeing with the earlier version of Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden, which is that Barack Obama is not prepared to be president.
Well, Mayor, if you don't get Chief Executive Magazine, do you get Reader's Digest? Do you get anything?
Yeah, what do you read, Katie?
You want to know what I read?
Yeah.
Well, wait a minute, because we only have 30 seconds.
I read lots of books, and I read the Wall Street Journal. It's sitting right next to me right here. I got the article on ACORN all underlined.
We like that. We like the Wall Street Journal. It's owned by our company. All right. Thank you very much, Rudy. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Meanwhile, Barack Obama saying he's giving him